How's it going, everyone? My name is DestinyElement. Hope you guys are all doing well, and we are back with another Honkai Star video for today, man. So, I've been using Black Swan a lot for everything: Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, Simulated Universe, Farming, whatever it may be. I've been using her, and she is phenomenal. Like, I really like her playstyle. She feels great to play. She's definitely a relatively easy character to build. Like, you kind of know what you want to build on her, but her investments and the thresholds that you need to reach are kind of high, I'm not gonna lie. But I wanted to go over a guide and just like kind of a build for you guys, because it's been a while since I've done builds for characters. So in this video I wanted to go over what she does, how she operates, light cone options that you can run on her. I wanted to go over relics and substats, and then I also wanted to cover team synergies that she has as well too, because she works really well on a dot team. And honestly, before she came out, Kafka was kind of holding the dot team together by herself, but her and Kafka are amazing. They're wonderful together. So that's basically it, what we're going to be covering in the video. If you guys do enjoy the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Really does help me out. Let me know if you guys got lucky and got Black Swan, and if not, you know, who you guys waiting to summon for. And if there's also any character on Star Rail that you want me to do a guide for, I will be happy to do that as well too. So usually with these guides, I like to dive into it in game instead of just like throwing pictures up on the screen. Like, I like to actually show you guys in game what you can possibly see in a character. So yeah, let's get into it. So getting into Black Swan, my Black Swan's currently sitting at level 80. Her light cone is 70. We have about 2700 attack, 137 speed, 30% break effect, and 133% effect hit rate. Now, getting into Black Swan, what is it that she does? She is a wind nihility character, so she specializes in wind seers and dot, obviously, but she brings two new debuffs into the game, Arcana and Epiphany. Now, Arcana is a debuff that can stack up to 50 times, and basically the more stacks of Arcana you have, the more damage your dot will do. And that dot can also be blasted to adjacent enemies as well. And Epiphany is going to make it so that enemies take increased damage, but what's really important about Epiphany is that if an enemy has Epiphany and Arcana on them, it registers them as having every dot in the game, so like bleed, burn, shock, and wind. And that's very important, because you want to basically have Kafka and Black Swan go as many times as possible before the enemy turn rise, because that way you can get as much damage off, because once the enemy turns start, their Arcana stacks are going to be resetted. So that's really important to note. That's kind of the gist of her kit. So the first thing I do want to talk about is her traces and her abilities, and then we can get into light cones, relics, and then overall team comps that work really well on her. So let's do that. Okay, so currently I have my Black Swan's abilities at level 8. I am going to try to get them to 10. It's just a lot of investment, but so we're going to go over her basic attack first. Her basic attack is going to deal wind damage to one single enemy, and what's really important about this basic attack is that for every dot that the enemy is suffering from, each of those dots have a extra 50% chance of inflicting another stack of Arcana. So this is actually one of the few basic attacks, I would say, in the game that you can possibly see like rewards from getting to like level 8 maybe, or not, well, not level 8, level 6. So I would definitely try maxing this out, because you will get good returns on it. Now, moving on, I'm gonna try to summarize, because it is a lot to read, so I'm gonna try to give like a TLDR of what her kit does. But with her skill, she has a blast AoE, so she's gonna hit one main target, and it's also gonna hit adjacent enemies. But she's gonna have a blast that has a 100% chance of inflicting Arcana, and then she also can reduce the enemy's defense as well too. So this is very important, because the only character in the game that comes to mind that has a AoE defense shred is Pela. So this is a great skill. I really like this. Now, even though it is a 100% base chance of inflicting Arcana, you have to take into account enemies' resistance as well too. So this is why effect hit rate is going to be a huge part of her kit, and I'll get over that. I'll go over that once we talk about relics. Now, moving on to her ultimate, inflicts Epiphany on all enemies. While afflicted with Epiphany, enemies take 22% increased damage. So this is from all sources. So 22% is definitely a pretty nice spike in your damage. But and then this is also what I was talking about. If enemies have Epiphany and Arcana, they are considered to be afflicted with every dot in the game. Now, what's really interesting is that when the enemy starts their turn, if they have Epiphany up, the first time that they take dot damage from Arcana stacks are not like resetted. So this is very, very good. So you basically get 2 turns to build up that Arcana as much as possible. So it's really, really nice. And then something else is that she just deals wind damage to all enemies as well too. So pretty good. You're not looking for like huge nuking potential with her ultimate, but it's kind of like a major setup for Kafka. So like if you can get Black Swan to go 2-3 turns before the enemy, set up Epiphany, you know, get a bunch of stacks of Arcana, you can really just kind of have Kafka enable all of that damage, and then that damage is going to get enabled again when the enemy's turn starts. So it's very, very good. Then we have her talent. So for every time an enemy receives a dot, there is a 61% base chance of inflicting Arcana. And this is also going to proc with Kafka, because Kafka is going to enable the dot that is on the enemy. While afflicted with Arcana, enemy targets receive win dot equal to 204% of her attack at the start of each turn, and then each stack of Arcana increases this damage multiplier by 10.2%. So if you have 50 stacks of Arcana, you're gonna have a 500% damage multiplier, and that is like okay, realistically you probably won't get 50 stacks on Arcana unless you're doing like maybe Memory of Chaos or Simulated Universe and you're getting a lot of turns and you have a lot of speed buffs, and the enemy also has like a insane amount of HP, you're probably not going to hit 50 stacks, but it's still nice to have, and like it shows her damage potential as well too, because as this game continues to like introduce new content and new enemies, maybe we will have an enemy that will have that much HP. So it kind of just shows like her longevity and just if she's future proof or not, because she definitely has a lot of damage in her kit and debuffs to back up her ability to like stay relevant for a long time. The next thing in her kit is basically when there are 3 or more Arcana stacks, she deals wind damage to a target and adjacent enemies. And then she also has another 61% base chance of inflicting a stack of Arcana on adjacent targets as well too. And then when there are 7 or more, Dot ignores 20% of the target's defense. Now, she ignores a lot of defense, or specifically, you can make her ignore a lot of defense on the enemy, and it's really important. So currently, you have 20% defense ignore here, and then at level 8, you have another, let's say 19% here. So you have 39% defense ignore, and it's crazy too, because I'm gonna get into the relics and light cones that you can run on her, and it's like you're gonna have so much damage potential. So moving on to her first talent, you have Viscera's Disquiet. After using the skill to attack a single target enemy that has wind, bleed, burn, or shock, each of these debuffs respectively have a 65% base chance of inflicting 1 extra stack of Arcana. So you're gonna see the number 65 a lot, and this is why like you need a lot of effect hit rate on her. So moving on, we have Goblet's Dredges. When an enemy target enters battle, there is a 65% base chance for it to be inflicted with 1 stack of Arcana. Every time an enemy target receives dot during a single attack by an ally, there is a 65% base chance for the target to be inflicted with another stack of Arcana. So this is really important. And the reason why this is important is because it means that you don't have to necessarily worry about always having her skill up or proccing her skill, even though it would be nice, because whenever enemies come in, you're going to be able to have that debuff placed on them. And this is going to be exceptionally good in Pure Fiction, because Pure Fiction, you kind of just have waves of enemies running at you constantly. So having that setup already, I guess, ready for you it's going to be nice. It's going to be convenient, and you know, this is just kind of like a nice quality of life trace that they gave her. Now finally, her biggest selling point, and this is where her damage is going to ramp up, like you need to get her to level 80 for this trace, and it's going to be Candle Flame's Portent. So increases this unit's damage by an amount equal to 60% of her effect hit rate up to a maximum damage of 72%. So TLDR, you need about 120% effect hit rate. Now in my opinion, I think Black Swan is a pretty easy character to build. The problem is that she is so like investment heavy. Like she's probably going to be a character that takes weeks to build, because you would need to min-max her as much as possible. Now, dot characters are relatively easy to build because they don't scale off of crit rate or crit damage. So you're really just looking for attack so that the dot hits more, speed so that they can get more turns, and then effect hit rate and break effect, so you can land those debuffs, and then break effect because you want to be able to do a lot of damage with not just the break damage, but with break dot, and break dot is separate from regular dot damage. So overall, like, you're looking at 120% effect hit rate on her. So granted, there's a lot of debuffs and chances that she has in her kit that, you know, you have a 65% base chance of inflicting Arcana. That 65% looks pretty good because you have so much effect hit rate. And then, you know, you have like other traces in her skill tree that increase her attack, wind damage, and then also effect hit rate. I kind of would have liked speed in her traces, but I feel like that would have made her like too easy to build. Like, I don't know. And speed is also one of the rarest substats that we do have in the game. Like, not all substats are rolled equally. So, I mean, it really depends, but wind damage, attack, and effect rate is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. And then finally, we have her technique. Whenever she uses her technique, there is a 150% base chance for each enemy to be inflicted with 1 stack of Arcana at the start of the next battle. For every successful application of it, the process is repeated until it fails. So this is kind of, it's really good. It's really, really good. Now granted, the base chance of success is equal to 50% of the previous chance, so it will go basically 100, then 50, then 25, I'm pretty sure, and then it would do like 12.5, and then it would just keep going lower and lower. So realistically, you'll probably just go in with 2 stacks of Arcana on every single enemy, but still, it's really good. It's good setup, and you just kind of pair that with where is it, the other talent, where like when enemies come into battle, they'll have a stack of Arcana placed on them. So overall, these are her skills. That's how she operates. Now we are going to get into light cone, so I'm going to go over her best in slot and free to play options that you guys can put on her. Okay, so getting into light cones, I was very blessed. We were able to get Reforged Remembrance. This is obviously her best in slot. This is going to give you 40% effect hit rate. So just like that, you're already 1/3 of the way to 120. And it's just kind of it's a really good light cone, if I'm being honest, and not because of the 40% effect hit rate, but for the second part of the passive. So for every enemy that is afflicted with wind, burn, shock, or bleed, you get a stack of Prophet, and that is going to increase your attack by 5%, and it's also going to make your dots ignore 7.2% of the target's defense. Now granted, you're probably thinking like, oh, so you need to run a wind character, a burn character, a shock, and a bleed. No. So her Epiphany and Arcana, because enemies already are registered as having all 4 of these dots, basically after you pop her ultimate, you're going to get a 20% attack increase, and then you're going to get a 28% defense ignore on your dots. So that's what I'm saying. You have 28% defense ignore, then you have another 20% defense ignore, so you have 48, and then 48 plus, let's say, another 20, you're going to be sitting at 68. So your dot will ignore 68% of the enemy's defense, and it doesn't stop there, because we're going to get to the relics as well too. 68% of the target's defense is going to be ignored when dots hit them, and that's so crazy. But getting into light cones, I know not everyone's going to have the Stellar Jades to go for this light cone, even though it's a really strong light cone in my opinion. Now we're going to talk about free-to-play options, because in my opinion, Nihility has some of the best free-to-play options when it comes to light cones. So the first one that I will actually recommend is before the tutorial mission starts. So this is going to increase your effect hit rate by 40%, the same amount, but you're also going to regenerate more energy as well for her. Now, I know not everyone is going to have this light cone, especially if you didn't start playing the game during 1.1, or maybe you just missed out on the event. But I also understand if people are running this light cone on Silverwolf, because this is Silverwolf's best free-to-play option. So I'm not going to run this light cone, obviously, but you do have another option, and that's Eyes of the Prey. So at Super Imposition 5, this is going to give you 40% effect hit rate, and then it's going to increase your dot by 48%. So you get 48% to your dot, 40% to your effect hit rate, and it gives you a lot of leeway to build into other stats like Break Effect, and more effect hit rate, obviously, and speed, and it's a really good light cone. I unfortunately only have it at Super Imposition 4, but this is a pretty good light cone, and it should be relatively easy to get to Super Imposition 5 if you're lucky. Now, besides Eyes of Prey and Before the Tutorial Mission Starts, which both give a very mandatory stat for Black Swan, you do also have some other really good options as well too, like this new light cone that we got called It's Showtime. So this is going to inflict a stack of trick on enemies, and then for every stack of trick that the enemy has, your damage increases by 7%, and then when your effect hit rate is over 80%, you get 24% attack. So you still have to build up to that 80% effect hit rate, but you do get a huge increase to your attack, and then you get an overall damage buff as well too, and this is actually really, really nice. So this light cone you should be able to buy from the Memory of Chaos shop, if I'm correct. I may be wrong about that, but you could get this to Super Imposition 5 relatively easily. And then there's also the one free copy that you get from that like gotcha pinball machine or whatever from the Penacani store when you're in the golden hour. So this light cone is also a really good option. Now the final option I can recommend would probably be Welt's light cone in the Name of the World. Now it's a 5-star light cone, so you get 5-star base stats, but it's also one of the few light cones you can buy from the Star Glitter shop. This is going to increase your damage dealt to debuff enemies by 24%. And then it's also going to increase your effect hit rate on your skill while giving you a 24% attack increase. So you get a debuffed, you get an overall damage buff, you get an attack buff, and then you get like pseudo effect hit rate off of your skill. So it's still a really good light cone. I think you can definitely make this work. Now the reason why I would say the 5-star Nihility light cone from Herta's shop isn't a good option necessarily on her is because one, it gives you break effect. And break effect is a very good stat on her, but for the most part, Kafka's probably going to be the one to break the enemy's toughness, and you really want effect hit rate on Black Swan. So if you have the opportunity to get effect hit rate, you should go for effect hit rate. But the rest of this, the rest of this passive is, I guess, all right. Increases dot dealt by the wearer by 30%, and then you also regenerate energy as well too. So the dot damage increase and the energy regen is really good. If you can somehow get to 120% effect hit rate without your light cone, then yeah, I would probably say this light cone is a really good option. But if you can't, then one of these other 4-star options could be your second best in slot. Now moving on, we are going to talk about relics. So this section is going to be a little bit longer than usual, but I'll try to explain it the best way that I can. Okay, so getting into relics. Now relatively speaking, she is pretty easy to build, but I'm going to explain why you have to take into account your box and the team that you're running her on, and there's also like certain specifics that you need to understand with her character. So yes, you are going to be running Prisoner of Deep Confinement. This is going to give you another 12% attack increase, and this is just going to make your dots hit harder, but also for every dot on the target, you're basically going to ignore another 6% of that target's defense. So you have another 18% defense ignore. So what did we say before? It was 68. So you have an 86% defense ignore. So with the 4-piece passive, Black Swan's talent, and then her skill, and then you also have her best in slot light cone as well too, you can hypothetically get to like a 68 plus 18, 78, 86. Okay, so yeah, you can ignore 86% of the target's defense, and that is huge. It's a lot. But overall, this is going to be her best set. So you're going to run obviously HP and then attack on the headpiece and the gloves. The chest piece is going to be kind of a toss-up. So if you have her best in slot, or if you have another way to get to 120% effect hit rate, whether that be substats, light cones, maybe like supports, whatever, I don't know, whatever it may be. If you can hit 120% effect hit rate on her, then a attack percent chest piece will be your best option. But in every single other scenario, you want an effect hit rate chest piece. Effect hit rate chest piece is going to give you the majority of your stats, and this is going to probably be your go-to. But if you can hit 120, then attack percent is perfectly fine too. Now, the argument for speed or attack, this is going to be kind of hard to explain, so you kind of have to give me a second. So in every single scenario, you want over 134 speed, because 134 speed is going to give you that the 2 turns before the enemy. Now, it's very hard for like me to explain this, but you either want to invest in a low speed, a slow Black Swan and full attack, or you want to invest in very high speed and you want to go over and over again. Now, you don't want to be in the middle, because what happens is that when you're in the middle, you're going to have more of a damage fall off, because you have enemies in Memory of Chaos, the hardest content in the game, who have about 155, 160 speed. So when you have enemies that have 160 speed, you need to either be able to match it or you need to be able to hit them as hard as possible. So if you're in that middle ground, you're not going to be able to capitalize on as much damage as you can. So if you're going for a team with Ron May, like me, I have Ron May with a full messenger set, so I can hit 160 speed really easily. Now, in cases where people aren't using Ron May or they can't hit 160 speed, I would opt for an attack percent boot. So I would probably do attack percent, or not attack percent, I would do effect hit rate chest piece and then attack percent boot. If you could hit 120% effect hit rate, then this chest piece becomes attack percent. If you have Ron May and you can hit that speed threshold, then I would say speed boots. Now, it really depends on your playstyle and how you want to play her at the end of the day. Now, I can't necessarily show you the numbers. If I can find it, I'll put a chart up on screen showing you how the graph is gonna like show you the situation and how your Black Swan will operate at low speed, high speed, and then in the middle with like 134 speed. Now, you don't need to necessarily hit 160 speed. That's like ridiculous. You would need like speed boots and then like 7 speed on every single one of your artifacts. If you can realistically hit 142, 143 speed, depending, I think if you're running full messenger, I would say 140. If you can hit 140 speed, you can hit 160 with Ron May, and you should be good. Because even though 135 speed, it could work necessarily, you could make 135 speed work, especially with Ron May, because she's going to give you a speed buff, and she's also going to be able to delay enemies' actions as well too with her ultimate. It's just kind of suggested that you either opt for as much speed as possible or as much damage as possible. You can't really have your cake and eat it too. You can't have high attack and high speed. So basically, overall, you would go for a effect hit rate chest piece, and then you would go for attack percent boots. If you have Ron May and you can hit that 154 to 160 speed, then yeah, I would say speed boots would be the way to go, definitely. If you can hit 120% effect hit rate, then attack percent chest piece would be your next best option. Now, getting into the planar sets, you're gonna run a attack percent rope, and then you're gonna run a wind damage orb on her. Now, right now I have Glamoff's 2-piece set on her, and this is gonna give me overall damage, and then with Ron May's buff, I'm gonna be able to hit that 18% more damage, but I will say this is probably her second best option, and then her third best option will be her to Space Station, so you can get the 24% increased attack on her dot. Definitely, I would say her best 2-piece planar set is the IPC's Mega HQ. This set, the Pan Cosmic Commercial Enterprise set, is going to give you an additional 10% effect hit rate, so it's going to make it a little bit easier to hit that 120, but it's going to convert 25% of your effect hit rate into 25% attack boost, and this 25% attack is definitely a huge jump. So right now I'm currently grinding for that IPC set, but this is going to be really good. This is going to be her best set, and honestly, it kind of depends. If you're already at that 120% effect hit rate, then Glamoff's definitely could be really good, but I would say it's better to just have that increased 25% attack as well too, because you kind of want all your stats to be balanced except speed, ironically enough, because what happens is that if you have so many overall damage buffs, you're going to get diminishing returns on it. So you want to have a lot of overall damage buffs, but you will also want to have a lot of attack percent buffs as well too. So that's something to keep in mind. I would say her best 4-piece is Prisoner of the Deep Confinement. You get the attack, you get the defense ignore, you do effect hit rate chest piece, and then you do speed boots as well too on her. If you can't hit that 160 speed for enemies in Memory of Chaos, then you do attack percent boot. If you can hit 120% effect hit rate, then you do attack percent chest piece, and then you'll basically just run the Pan Cosmic Commercial Enterprise with attack percent rope and then wind damage orb, and that would be your go-to. Now, substats, speed. You obviously want to try to opt for as much speed as you possibly can on her. If you can hit over 140 speed with Ron May, you should be good. But besides speed, you want effect hit rate, obviously, because you want to try to get as much as you can to land your debuffs, and then break effect. Break effect is going to be probably her third best substat on her, just for the sake, like, yeah, Kafka is going to be the one breaking the enemy's toughness half the time, but it's like her skill and her ultimate does do a lot of toughness damage, so having that break effect could definitely be nice too. I'm still min-maxing a lot of stats on her, so yeah. Basically, TLDR, effect hit rate chest piece, speed boots, wind damage orb, attack percent rope. If you can't hit the speed threshold, attack percent boots, and if you already hit the effect hit rate threshold, then attack percent chest piece. And then substats, speed, effect hit rate, and break effect will be your best friend. And that's basically it. So the final thing I do want to cover is Eidolons and then team comps. Like if I think you guys should summon for Eidolons, or if she's just a character that you don't really need Eidolons for, and then we'll get into team comps. So getting into it. Now, do I think she is worth the extra copies? Well, she has a lot of great stuff in her kit. Noticeably, her first one is pretty good. While Black Swan is active in battle, enemies afflicted with dot will have their corresponding wind, physical, fire, or lightning resistance respectively reduced by 25%. So if they have a lightning dot on them, their lightning resistance is reduced by 25%. And this is also going to give you a really nice increase in damage. I would probably say this is a really good light cone. Then you also have Eidolon 2. When an enemy target afflicted with Arcana is defeated, there is a 100% base chance of inflicting 6 stacks of Arcana on adjacent targets. This is going to give her a huge damage increase. Like, this is so massive, and she's going to do really well in pure fiction, especially with this Eidolon. Then you have Eidolon 3, just levels up her skill and her talent. Eidolon 4, while in the Epiphany state, enemies targets have their effect resistance reduced by 10%, and at the start of their turn or when they get defeated, Black Swan regenerates 10 energy. This energy regeneration effect can only trigger up to 1 time while Epiphany lasts, and the trigger count resets when Epiphany is applied again. So, I mean, 10% effect resistance and then 8 energy. It's all right. It's nothing crazy. Then you have level 5, and then you have level 6. When an enemy target gets attacked by Black Swan's allies, Black Swan has a 65% base chance of inflicting 1 stack of Arcana on the target. Every time Black Swan inflicts Arcana on an enemy target, there is a 50% fixed chance to additionally increase the number of Arcana stacked, this time by 1. So this is pretty good. Basically, because she has an additional chance of inflicting Arcana on enemies whenever a ally attacks, it means that you're probably going to build stacks faster and you can get to that 50 cap relatively easier. When it comes to Black Swan and if she needs Eidolons, no. I don't think there's any 5-star character in the game that needs Eidolons, and I don't think anyone should necessarily summon for dupes unless you really love the character. If you love the character, if it's a part of your favorite team and you really like Dot and it's like the only team that you want to run for every bit of content, then yeah, go ahead, absolutely. If Black Swan's your favorite character, you should try to go for dupes if that's what you want in the long term. But if you value having a diverse roster and more like different characters in your box, then no, I don't necessarily think the Eidolons are necessary, just for the sake that she is really strong, man. Like, she is such a strong character at E0, and even if I didn't have her signature light cone, I would probably say like Eyes of Prey is still a very great option for her as well too. So like, even with the light cone and everything that I have, I'm hitting 133% effective rate, so I do have some room to invest in other stats. That's why I do want to min-max. Like, I want to try to still keep over 120% effect hit rate, but I do want to get my break effect up like quite a bit. And same thing for my speed. So 137, I think so with my Ron May buff, because I do have 4-piece messenger on her, I think between Ron May and Messenger passive, I think my Black Swan hits about 158 speed. So like Memory of Chaos 12, I can keep up with it. But that's what I'm saying, like, she is very high investment. Like, she requires a lot to get going. So that's why I say, like, it's usually better to either run her extremely fast or just run her as slow as possible with a lot of attack buffs. And that's probably where most of your damage is going to be, because trying to meet in the middle ground just isn't going to work, and you're going to lose a lot of damage. You're going to lose potentially up to, if I remember correctly, like possibly up to 30% of your damage. So that's just something to keep mind of. If you can still clear Memory Chaos 11 and 12 perfectly fine, then honestly you don't have anything to change. But for people that are building Black Swan, that is just something good to keep note of. Now, The final thing I do want to talk about is team comps for her, and then that's going to kind of wrap up the video. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so you see where we are. We are in the data bank. You know, because I don't have every character in the game, man. Like, I can't summon for every character. I'm poor. But we have 35 characters out of the 43. So Black Swan, who works really well with her? Well, it honestly depends, you know. So I would say 9 times out of 10, her best comp is dot teams, obviously. So her partners are going to be Kafka, Ron May, and then usually like a solo sustain. So you have like Swan, you have Gepard, you have Natasha, you have Locha, Huohuo, Bailu. So putting aside solo sustains or healers, you're going to have 3 characters that you can choose from. Kafka is going to be her best partner because it enables Black Swan and Kafka to do damage basically whenever they want, when their team starts or when the enemy goes, and that's her best partner. If you don't have Kafka though, however, you do have other options. You do have characters like Sampo, Luca, and Gwenfin, who can absolutely take advantage of her dot, and even in some cases Sampo puts out a lot of damage because he gives the dot vulnerability debuff as well too with his ultimate. And then you have Gwenfin with her fire kiss, and it is really good. You don't necessarily need Kafka. It's just, let's say the dot team without Kafka is like a 5, and then you have the dot team with Kafka and Black Swan, which is a 10 out of 10, and they kind of excel in like everything. So it's good, but there's a very, very noticeable difference. But even then, Luca, Gwenfin, Sampo, great picks to partner with Black Swan. Kafka's a great pick to partner with Black Swan. Now, the reason why Ron May is honestly the best support for dot teams is because she increases break effect, speed, and she also has weakness break efficiency, so you have a higher chance of actually getting that break effect and getting that break dot on enemies as well too. So you are going to be able to consistently break the enemy's toughness over and over again. Now, I feel like, in my opinion, you know, you guys can disagree with me, I think Black Swan, even at E0 without her signature icon, is a very strong DPS alone by herself, and I think she can definitely work as a flex or a sub DPS. Now, if you don't have any wind damage dealers and you need a wind damage dealer, like maybe you don't like Dan Heng, maybe you didn't summon for Blade, and maybe you don't have Sampo built up, you know, she is a great sub DPS in my opinion. So if you want to run her with another character like Dr. Ratio, who is very, very strong, and he actually benefits from the enemy having more debuffs, he is a great pick to you know, have alongside her. If you want to run a character like Sealy or Jingliu in a dual carry comp, you know, if you want to do like Sealy, Black Swan, Ron May, or Jingliu, Black Swan, Ron May, you can, because Ron May is going to basically support these dual carry comps, and when you have characters like Jingliu and Sealy who are very self-sufficient and they can buff themselves, you can still clear the content. I would say Himiko is also a really good option with Black Swan. You also have characters like Asta who can support Black Swan immensely because of her huge attack increase, so her dot's going to deal more damage. Serval is also a really good character, and you know, she's going to be able to benefit from the dots. So it really kind of depends on what your box is looking like. Because you want to have Arcana stacked as quickly as possible and as much as possible, you will catch yourself using Black Swan's skill every turn most of the time. So she can be a skill point neutral character, I would say, but that's why I think it's important to level up her basic attack, because her basic attack still has an increased chance of applying more stacks of Arcana. So you don't have to use her skill every turn, it's just, it would be better if you did. So you kind of want to run other skill point positive or skill point neutral characters with her. So having a support like Ron May and Swan, who have their buffs up for 3 turns, will definitely help. Jingliu is a skill point positive character once she transforms, because her skill doesn't consume skill points. But besides that, you do have characters like Blade and Argenty that can, I guess, hypothetically apply bleed and wind sears on the enemy if they break the enemy's toughness. So if you wanted to do like Argenty, Black Swan, Ron May, or like Blade, Black Swan, and Ron May, you definitely could do that. I would say she fits well, or she fits perfectly on the dot team, but if you have DPS characters that are self-sufficient that can supply buffs for themselves first, they can also work with Black Swan as well too. So, you know, Black Swan wouldn't be the main focus of that team, obviously, but her dot and her debuffs would be a lot of help. You know, if you want to run a character like Jing Liu, and then you have like Pela and Black Swan for double defense shred, and then you have like a little bit of dot damage, still really, really good. Overall, I absolutely love her character. I think she is very strong. I think she is future proof, and I think she makes the dot team what it should have been. You know, like before, Kafka carried a lot of it, and now Black Swan is here to kind of make that load a little bit easier for Kafka, and they perform so perfectly well. Like this, like she is the perfect character and exactly what dot teams needed. I honestly think she's in the same position as Kafka, like I said in a couple videos. As long as Nihility characters exist and dot characters keep coming out, Kafka will forever be good, because her damage is going to be kind of dependent on how strong those dot characters are, and seeing how strong Black Swan already is, I honestly don't see her falling off anytime soon. You know, I think I wouldn't like, she is a damage dealer, but she's kind of like a specialist, like a damage like a utility kind of, but like she's really, really strong. Like she seems like a specialist or a utility character that's capable of a immense amount of damage, and that damage is enabled by Kafka. So you know, we have Kafka who can enable it, we have Black Swan who can supply all the debuffs in the game, all the dot debuffs in the game. Now, if we were to get like another Nihility dot character that can multiply how many times those dots are like afflicted, or how many times those dots do damage, that would probably be like best case scenario. But that's basically it. If you guys do enjoy the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. If there's anything that I maybe missed out on, or that you guys need me to touch up on or reiterate, let me know in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.